30-year-old Tammy Cuyler was described as kind, trusting of everyone, selfless, and a down-to-earth woman. In 1986, she attended the University of St. Joseph's and studied psychology. She was a focused student with a social life. One night, she went out to a club with her friends, and it was there that she met this young man, Arnold Cuyler. Now, this man was also studying English at the University of Connecticut. People described Arnold as attractive, tall, dark, and handsome. He also was pursuing a great career, drove a motorcycle, and seemingly had it all going. He took a quick liking to Tammy, and soon they were in a relationship. After they graduated college in 1989, their relationship continued, and they moved in together. Tammy was the kind of woman who was traditional, who valued a relationship, marriage, and a family in the foreseeable future. Arnold, however, didn't find this to be an easy transition, as a part of him still wanted to live the single life, and he still had a wandering eye. He wasn't a faithful man to Tammy, but she was still a sweetheart who loved him and protected his image to others. Despite Arnold's cheating, the couple still lived together when she found out that she was pregnant. She still wanted to become a wife, and Arnold wasn't entirely ready for it at first, so this news scared her. However, Arnold finally made the choice to marry her, and together they left East Hartford and moved to Windsor. On October 26, 1990, she gave birth to their son, Jerel. After giving birth, she grew closer to her faith, becoming more active in the church and the Jehovah's Witness fellowship with other members of her family, including her Aunt Joyce and first cousin, Chassity. 23-year-old Chassity was described as fun, creative, a writer, friendly, flirtatious, and looked out for her family. She came off as the cool cousin to her relatives and was 7 years younger than Tammy. At the time, she was living with her parents and worked as a licensed nurse at the Cheshire Correctional Institution. Two years later, Tammy was working full-time and enlisted her cousin Chassity to babysit 2-year-old Jerel. Chassity helped Tammy a lot during this time, babysitting, cooking, and cleaning the house. But things took a strange turn for her when she took a liking to Arnold. Over time, she spent more time in the Cuyler house to see Arnold under the guise of helping Tammy. Tammy would catch sexual jokes and glances from Chassity, but she gave her much benefit of the doubt. After all, Chassity was her cousin and sister in faith. Another 2 years go by, and Tammy learns she's pregnant again. This time, it's with a baby girl. But the flirting between Chassity and Arnold only intensified, this time becoming more obvious to others. There was an incident around this time where Chassity's mom, or Tammy's auntie, Joyce, invited the family over to the home for a pool party. Arnold and Chassity in particular were seen spending a lot of focused time together in the pool, giggling and tossing each other around. On another night, the family went out dancing, including Arnold and Chassity. The club closed around 2 a.m., but 3 a.m. came and Arnold was still not home. When he came home, he brought Chassity with him. Their story was that Chassity left her license at the club and had to go back for it. But this time, Tammy was not buying it. Her intuition knew something wasn't right. On July 22, 1995, she gave birth to their baby girl, Lindsay. At this time, Chassity was still babysitting, helping out and doing Lindsay's hair, but her interactions with Arnold were getting even more obvious. There was a time where the family were hanging by the pool again, and Chassity had baby Lindsay in her lap, who kept tugging at her bikini top, exposing her chest. And Arnold and Chasity kept their eyes on each other. A family member caught this moment. Tammy wanted to stay with Arnold for the sake of their marriage and now for the sake of their children, but she was not happy. She still kept a face for the family. Eventually, Chasity was confronted about her inappropriate relations with Arnold, and she completely denied it as the suspicions exposed the strain on the families. Her mother Joyce came to Chassity's defense against the family instead of holding her accountable. The following year, Tammy started to have some familial trouble with her brother Danny. She was a social worker for the State Department of Children and Family, and her job was to remove children from homes where they're in harm's way. At the time, her brother and his girlfriend were struggling with alcohol while caring for their child, Danny Jr., who was now facing the foster care system. To protect her brother and his son, she opted to take in her baby nephew to stay with her and her 2 kids, which caused some tension with her brother. Now, she was a mother of 3. With 3 children and an intense job, she was desperately hanging on to her marriage. And Chassity and Arnold were still on bullshit. One night, her Aunt Joyce was holding a couples event where friends and families came as couples, and in walked Arnold and Chassity. While everyone slept, someone heard the sound of sneakers squeaking, and when they opened their eyes, they saw Arnold and Chassity having sex. This news soon came to Tammy, and she divorced him because this had to be the confirmation she was looking for. Arnold shortly moved out, and they were in divorce proceedings, while he continued his secret relationship with Chassity. When confronted, Chassity would tell people that Tammy was a mistake for him, and now he's happy with her. She wanted to marry him and move to Atlanta because she knew their relationship looked bad, but he did not want to ever leave his kids or be far away from them. He still had legal visitation rights where he would keep his kids every other weekend and 2 nights a week. Chassity was no longer invited to the Cuyler home or to spend time with their kids anymore. Unbeknownst to Arnold, though, Chassity would follow him to make sure that he wasn't getting too comfortable in his ex-wife's home. She would park her car down the street and just watch him. A large part of her feared that he would try to make things right with Tammy again and abandon their relationship. After some time, when the excitement died down, Arnold began questioning what he was doing. Whenever he was asked for marriage, he would tell her that he could not pursue that because she's Tammy's cousin and he could never physically leave his children. Chassity was also upset at how much money he paid Tammy for child support. Their continued relations with each other only made her more upset. By 1997, a year after their divorce, Tammy moved on and created a new life for herself and bought her first home. She started dating a man named Ben, and this made her feel attractive again and like she had her spark back after second-guessing her worth for so long. Sometime after, they embarked on a relationship, and she felt comfortable inviting him around her kids. But this was short-lived once she started noticing how he would inappropriately say sexual things in front of the kids or brag about being affiliated with the Jamaican gang. He was leaving in the middle of the night claiming he was getting a drink, and all of these instances began raising more questions for her. The final straw was when she found out that he was still married. She confronted Ben and ended things immediately in March of 1998. But Ben was arrogant and rejection was hard for him to handle. On a rainy, stormy night in the dead of summer, Tammy was at home and called it a night for herself and her 3 kids. Her room was on the main level of the house, and the kids had their own rooms on the 2nd floor. But on this night, they couldn't sleep because of the thunderstorms, and came in to sleep with her. Around 3 a.m., she woke up to the sounds of what she thought was air opening her door. But when she got up to close the door, she met someone walking towards her. She tried to close her room but was immediately tackled by a male assailant, covering her nose and mouth. She was told to shut the fuck up and nobody would get hurt. She then heard a second person come into the room. She heard 7-year-old Jerel say, "What are you doing?" and Lindsay whimpering. Not able to see anything from the floor, she could tell whoever it was messing with her kids and immediately started fighting back the assailant, pulling off his glove and watch. His hand briefly slipped from her mouth and she screamed, my kids, please don't hurt my kids." Soon after, the male assailant yelled, I'm out, and ran out of the house. The second masked person walked out of the room without saying a word. As soon as she heard them leave, she jumped up and ran to the door to lock it. When she went back into the room, she saw blood gushing from 2-year-old Lindsay's arms. She ran to get a towel and stop her from bleeding and kept telling Jerel to get up. Jerel was face down on the bed and she touched him, but he did not move. She turned him over and started screaming. His throat was slashed wide open and there were lacerations on his arms. She called 911 and kept screaming, "They killed my baby." When EMT and police arrived at the home, they observed blood splatter and drippings everywhere, with a trail leading out of the bedroom. The mattress was soaked in blood, and there was also a 2-liter pineapple soda bottle filled with gasoline. They began working on Jerel, but Tammy knew he was not going to make it. They could not find any pulse for him. He was transferred to the nearest hospital, where he was pronounced dead, and Lindsay was rushed into surgery. Danny Jr. was untouched. Tammy called Arnold and let him know of the horrendous news. The detectives immediately began searching for suspects and started interviewing relatives. For a second, Arnold was looked at as a person of interest, but he couldn't have been there if Tammy called him afterwards, and his phone line was at his place. Next, they thought the attack maybe had something to do with Tammy taking her nephew, as he was the only child unharmed. They thought perhaps her brother's family was upset and took revenge to make her feel just as helpless as they felt, but this was ruled out. What they found interesting was this pineapple soda bottle filled with gasoline, as it was a popular drink among the Caribbean population. There was a double homicide that took place in a neighboring town with Jamaican gang members, where they were duct taped to chairs and had their Achilles tendon slit with a razor. A similar bottle with gasoline was found between the chairs. For a second, they thought this was another Jamaican gang-affiliated crime. One person close to Tammy told police that her most recent boyfriend was Jamaican and some of his family was involved in the cartels, and that he was also angry after their breakup. Soon, they brought Ben in for questioning, and he was cooperative, gave a moment-by-moment play of his whereabouts, said he cared so much for the kids and would do anything to help. So the police concluded he was not involved. 4 days after the crime, there was no solid lead. The more they thought, the more they were surprised that Tammy had no idea who could have been behind this. They even made her take a polygraph test, and she failed. But it showed them that she was cooperating and had nothing to hide. On July 12th, they turned their attention to a piece of evidence found on the scene, the G-Shock watch. They wanted to gather any DNA that could have come from sweat, and they broadcasted this watch to the media. And to their surprise, they received a call from an attorney stating that their client wanted to talk to the police, 18-year-old Alexis Grajales. He admitted to being one of the masked people who broke into Tammy's home. The detectives began threatening to charge him with every criminal statute they could think of, so he admitted that he was recruited to terrorize Tammy. He was paid $4,000 in cash, was told to buy a carpet-cutting razor, and fill a soda bottle with gasoline. His only job was to pin Tammy down as the other assailant vandalized the home. When he asked about whether the kids would be home, he was told that they would be with their grandmother and only Tammy would be alone in the house. But as soon as he heard kids screaming that night, he took off and ran out the scene. When asked who brought him into this gruesome plan, he said it was his cousin's girlfriend, 23-year-old Chasity West. Next, the police were on the hunt to interview Chasity. Once she was brought to the station, she was questioned about her whereabouts and the crime. Detectives noticed that her answers kept changing and she was evasive. After some time playing into her game, they brought her the 3 autopsy photos of Jerel. She quickly became erratic and put her head in her hands. She was then asked, "Who killed Jerel?" And she replied, "I did." She then sunk into her chair and started crying. She said to herself, "What have I done?" She was asked if she needed anything, to which she replied, "Just shoot me. I don't want to go to jail." Afterwards, she was read her rights and processed. While searching her vehicle, officers confirmed Jarrell's blood was present. As for the gasoline in the Coke bottle, Chasity was cunning. She planted the bottle there because she wanted to make a similar setting from the Jamaican cartel homicide case. Tammy was in the hospital with Lindsay when the chief of police came in and told her that they arrested Chasity for the murder of Jerel. Initially, she felt a sense of relief, but it was followed by rage. She couldn't understand why she would take his life, or if Chasity would ever understand the damage it caused her. Not even the detectives could understand Chassity's rationale for the crime, that she somehow felt she needed to cut his kids out of his life so that she and Arnold could move and live a happily ever after in Atlanta like she dreamed. Alexis Grajales received 25 years for burglary, but the sentence was reduced to 6. As for Chassity, the prosecution sought the death penalty. She tried to blame the happenings on Alexis and downplay her role, but none of it made sense. She claimed that Tammy was terrorizing her for years and that she never had the intention of harming her at all. That it was supposed to be a prank and a cute scare, but it somehow went left. It was later revealed that she did not harm Tammy simply because she felt that she would then have to be responsible for all 3 of her toddlers and her new life with Arnold, assuming she would still have a life of freedom. It is clear that Chassity does not think things through at all. Nonetheless, she was found guilty of burglary, assault, risk of injury to a child, felony murder, attempt to commit murder, and capital felony. Instead of the death penalty, she was sentenced to 999 years in prison. Surely it could have never been love that Chassity felt with Arnold. Rather, it was just a fatal attraction, because you cannot love a man and then turn around and kill and harm his children in the name of love. Now 30 years old, Lindsay still imagines how having an older brother would have impacted her life and how her life would be if Jerel was still here. Since this took place when she was so young, she doesn't know the person she would have been had it not happened. But what she does know is that it framed and changed her entire life course. Tammy still commemorates Jerel, her firstborn, and wonders who he would have been right now. She vividly remembers dancing with him in the kitchen, telling him how soon they'd become older and teenagers. She wishes she could dance with him and give him a big hug and kiss again. And she knows he would have become anything he wanted to be. As for Arnold, she forgives him and believes he still carries a heavy burden, since they've been wonderful co-parents to Lindsay. Tammy realized that if he had the chance to do it all over again, she believes he would have done things differently and Jerel would still be here. To Chassity, she doesn't carry rage anymore, but she is still in the process of forgiveness. In 2023, Chasity wrote a letter from jail in support of an act concerning eligibility for people serving lengthy sentences for a crime committed before the age of 25. She claimed that at 23, she knew very little about herself, and at 20, she found herself in a situation with an older man who decided things for her, alluding to Arnold, and that this kind of submissiveness prepared her for life in prison, where she's constantly told what to do. She claimed to have used poor judgment and made her first significant mistake that was astronomical. She now describes herself as a smart and thoughtful young lady who's redeemable and capable of remarkable growth, and the judge in her case not seeing her capable of this made less sense to her. Well, her crimes and rationale makes absolutely no sense to anyone 27 years later either. Now 51, it seems she still has not taken full accountability and will be spending the rest of her days in York Correctional Institution. On this day of October 26th, we wish the happiest of birthdays today to a child angel, Jarrell Cuyler. He would have been 35 today. May Jerel rest blissfully in paradise and the Cuyler family receive much ease and relief in their grief. And thank you all for watching.